Hello, I'm Gordon Lang, editor of CameraLabs.com. I'm about 2 months into my trip away from New Zealand and I'm back on home turf in England. I'm near Exmouth in the UK's southwest, which is a holiday destination. It's a really beautiful part of the world with the sea behind you and the world famous southwest coastal path if you want to walk around this part of the country. Now, whether you're away from home for just a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of months or even longer, you'll inevitably miss some of your creature comforts. And that's what I'd like to talk about in this video, and in particular audio, because that's the thing that I really miss when I'm away from home. Now, I'm not talking about having access to your favourite songs, because that's really easy these days. You can store a vast amount of music on your computers or portable stereos, whether even if it's uncompressed audio, or of course you can stream it if you've got access to the internet. I'm a member of Spotify. I signed up to their premium service and I can highly recommend that, especially as it unlocks a higher bitrate option that sounds much better. So as long as you've got connection to the internet, I can listen to pretty much anything I want. But the real challenge when you're away from home is achieving decent sound quality, and that is what I'm going to talk about specifically in this video. Now, when I set off on this trip, I had a fairly basic pair of earphones. They were all right. They were from Dynamic. They cost about $50 US, but unfortunately I lost them on one of my flights. So since then, I've been on the lookout for something better quality, and I thought, maybe I'll try and see if I can achieve some really decent hi-fi results. Is it possible to do it with a small amount of equipment? I mean, I've got a decent pair of headphones back home. They're Sennheiser HD650s, which are really good if you can accommodate something big that fits over your ears. But I'm traveling with just a small rucksack, so I need really in-the-ear earphones. And I've always been skeptical as to whether these could actually deliver decent sound quality, so I began to do a bit of research. And when I'm doing that these days, I put it out there on Twitter and Facebook and Google+, because I want to hear what you guys recommend. And you were great with your suggestions. A lot of people recommended Shure, again Dynamic, Sennheiser came up quite a few times. But one of the brands that consistently came up again and again was one that I'd heard of before but never really investigated, and that was Etymotek. Now, when I looked into this company, they actually invented earphones that fit inside the ear in the early 90s, so I was very interested to see how they performed, and certainly they got some fantastic reviews. Now, they do 3 different ranges, and I went for the middle range, which is the HF series. Now, these come in 3 models, and they're all wired. I should say, I love the idea of wireless models, Bluetooth, wireless audio, but I wanted to be able to connect these to airline entertainment systems, and at the moment they're not wireless. You still need to plug in the cable, so I wanted a cable solution. So they do 3 different models, and it starts with the HF5, which is a basic just cable with the earphones on the end. Now they start, I have to check my notes here, if you're buying them in the US they'll cost you about $139, or if you're buying them in the UK it's about £110. And you can buy them direct from the Etymotek website. In some cases, I believe the HF5s, which are the most basic ones, may only be available exclusively from some stores. Like in the US, you might have to go to Amazon.com to get those. Then the next model up, which is about £10 or about $20 US more, are the HF2s. Now these add a little module with a built-in microphone, so you can use them with smartphones. And the HF2 is specifically designed for Android, Windows Mobile, and Blackberries. Then spend about another £10 or $20 US, and you get the HF3s, and those are the models I went for. These are exactly the same. They have the little microphone set for you to use on your smartphone, but also has transport controls, and they're designed for use with Apple mobiles, so the iPhone, the iPod, and the iPad. The US price on those is $179, and the UK price is £134. That sounds quite expensive, but remember we're talking about proper hi-fi here, and that can normally go to much, much higher prices. Now the interesting thing about Etymotek is that they describe their earphones as noise isolating, not noise cancelling. Now when you get a company like Bose, what they will do is actually monitor the sound around you and then try and play the same sound out of phase into your ears, thereby cancelling it out, which sounds pretty complicated, but it can work quite effectively. What Etymotek do is say, well, why muck about with all of that when all you need is a really good fit? So their idea is to have earphones that fit really snugly within your ears, and to that end they actually supply their earphones with many different attachments. The standard ones, which you'll see in all of the marketing photos, almost look like little mini space ray guns. They look absolutely fantastic, and they do those in 2 sizes. Then they've got some fairly basic ones which look almost like mushrooms, and then they've got another set that look really like earplugs, and you just attach these to the end of the earphones and wedge them in your ears. And the idea is to find the ones that fit so well that you really can't hear anything around you, or almost nothing around you, and it's really quite eerie. So if you're trying these earphones and you can still hear people talking around you, or the sound of the sea, or of a train or an aeroplane or whatever, then you've not got the right fit. You either need to adjust the fit in your ear or try different earbuds on the end. But when you do get it right, when you get the ones that really do fit your ears, it's unbelievable. Just almost everything disappears around you, and you've just got the sound, just got the music, which is what you want to hear. And as a result, it means you don't need to turn them up as loud, which in turn means you don't ruin your hearing. And it also means that you don't get that annoying sound coming out your ears to really irritate the person sat next to you on the train. So it's good in so many respects. And in fact, if you really want to take it to the next level, they'll do a custom earbud option where you go to an approved audiologist who pours some special gunge into your ear and takes an actual custom mold of your ear, and then they post you these kind of squishy things which you put on, and they give you an absolutely perfect fit. And in fact, I think I'm going to go for those, so I'll let you know how they work out later on. Those custom fits cost about £70 or $100, and you'll see them. They're what musicians use. You'll see those kind of squishy transparent things in their ears. That's pretty much what they're using. Now, when I tried these earphones, I of course tried them immediately with the ray gun option, but they didn't fit my ear. So then I tried the slightly less glamorous mushroom one, and they didn't work so well either. And in fact, the ones that worked best of all for me were the ones that look like the earplugs. So they don't look fantastic, but they sound really, really good. And the sound itself is really, really open. What happens, and I'm going to use some kind of hi-fi terms here, so you might think, what's this guy talking about? But suddenly you begin to notice a lot more detail in the music. Previously, it all sounded like a bit of a mash, it all mushed together. Whereas what decent hi-fi does is actually separates the instruments. You can really hear the vocalists, the guitars, the drums. You can also begin to hear a bit of detail in even the way the instruments are played. Like if it's a guitar, you might be able to really hear the way that the strings are being plugged. You also get a kind of wider sound stage. The music just sounds bigger and more open. And that's what I found with these earphones. But these by themselves are not the end or the ultimate sound quality that you can achieve on the move. I'm going to show you a 4-part plan, of which these are only the first part. So what's the second part? Well, normally you would connect these earphones directly to the headphone jack on your computer, right? Why not? The computer's got a built-in digital to analog converter, built-in headphone or earphone amplifier. It drives the earphones. It's a computer, it's got to be good, right? Except that's not the case. Computers are great at storing music, but not necessarily great at delivering audio. Because the trouble is that all those bits that are coming out of the computer in terms of the audio have to be timed perfectly. And if they don't, you get this effect called jitter, and that actually really reduces the sound quality. Now, normally when you just plug the earphones into the side of your computer, it uses the computer's built-in clock to actually send those signals, the actual bits that make up the audio itself. And believe it or not, that clock may not be that accurate. So the solution is to use an external clock. Now, the way that works is to use something called an external digital to analog converter, and these normally have a clock built into them. Now, there's loads of these available. They connect over USB, and here's the one that I'm using on this trip. In this lovely velvet pouch here, I have the R-Pack, which as you can see is about the size of a pack of cards. It's got a nice aluminium shell, so it feels quite substantial, but not too heavy that you wouldn't want to carry it around with you. I've been putting this in my rucksack and I hardly notice that I'm carrying it at all. You'll notice it's got a headphone socket on one side. That's a 3.5mm jack. These are the volume controls on the front, and on the back you've got two phonos here if you want to connect it to an actual hi-fi amplifier, and you've got a USB input here. Now what happens, it comes with a USB cable. You just connect this to your laptop or your computer. It doesn't require a driver on Mac or Windows, it just works. And the really clever thing though is that this USB connection is called an asynchronous connection. And what that means is that the device controls the clock, not the computer. So this device is saying, okay, I've got a decent clock inside here. I want these bits of music here, 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 here at nice regular intervals. And that virtually eliminates jitter and gives the digital to analog converter a much easier time. What's the bottom line? Does it sound any good? Yeah, it sounds absolutely fantastic. Plug the earphones into this and it absolutely transforms the quality. Again, the depth of detail that you get on the instruments is just amazing. You can really hear the plucking of the strings. The soundstage becomes even wider. It's almost like there was a veil over it that was muffling it, and it's been lifted, and just the quality is improved enormously. I know you're probably skeptical if you're not a hi-fi person, but if you are, one of these is really going to make a massive difference. How much does it cost? Well, it's about £150 or $250. And there's lots of different USB DACs around. This is just the one that I tried. I can vouch for it. There are many others available, varying in price. This is actually one of the cheapest ones. I've got one at home that costs about £2,000, and a benchmark DAC 1 Pre. That is a really high-end USB DAC. But this one is just, that requires mains power. This doesn't require any power. It's powered by the USB, and you get really decent quality from it. There's also one called Dragonfly that's just come out. That's actually the size of a USB key, so that's incredibly portable. If portability is most important to you, then you might want to check that out. I can't vouch for it because I've not used it, and it only just came out when I made this video. So that's part 2. Use an external DAC. So what's part 3? You've got your DAC, you've got your earphones. Well, part 3 is the actual software you're using to play your audio. Now you might be thinking, well, if I've got a Mac, I'm going to be using iTunes, and that's fine, that'll play the audio, but there are better ways of doing it. Now, believe it or not, when you're using applications like iTunes, it goes through an awful lot of different software layers on your computer, and each one of those can muck about with the sound a little bit. They can add their own volume controls, they could compress the dynamic range, they could introduce noise, they could do all sorts of things. What you want is the most direct path. So what you want is some software that can actually pretty much take the bits of your music and just squirt them straight out the USB port to one of these devices. And again, there's lots of different programs that can do that. I used one called Audivana Plus. Now that costs $50 US. Again, I'm going to try and get you to spend more money, but there's a free trial. So go and download it. I'm going to put the URL where you can find that on the screen right now. And what this does is allow you to specify a very direct path for your audio, so it's not being mucked about with by anything else. And again, it just improves the quality so much more. It's like at each step, the earphones, the external DAC, the software, they all improved it massively. Now, one of the interesting things that I noticed when I was using the earphones by themselves, plugged directly into the computer, ripped CDs using uncompressed file formats like FLAC or AIFF, they sounded fantastic. But I noticed that compressed music like MP3s or streamed music from Spotify suddenly sounded vastly inferior. And it is inferior, but it became so bad that I actually really didn't want to listen to it. And that depressed me a bit because I only had a few ripped CDs with me and I was using Spotify for the rest of my music. So I thought, oh no, I've bought these earphones and I've ruined all my music now. The interesting thing about using this was that it made everything sound better, including the streamed music and the compressed music. So this actually made Spotify listenable again, which was very important to me. But there's another step you can go beyond even CD quality. That is going to even high resolution formats. Now CDs use 16 bits of tonal dynamic range and a sampling rate of 44.1 kilohertz. Now there's no reason why you couldn't go for a higher sampling rate or a higher bit rate. So, some people actually make available music in these high resolution formats. You could have music in 24 bits of dynamic range with 96 kilohertz sampling rate. But where do you get hold of these files and how do you play them? Well, I went to a website called hdtracks.com. Again, I've got the URL on the screen here if you want to visit them, and they actually sell high resolution audio files. Again, you don't need to trust me, they've got a free download, and that sounds absolutely amazing. And the nice thing about this DAC is that it will actually natively handle 24-bit 96 kilohertz files. That website actually sells ones that are even more high resolution. Still, this DAC will just downsample those, but they still sound great, but there's no point really going above 24-bit 96 kilohertz. So that's the fourth part of the equation. Decent sound quality to start with, having a decent file to play. Like I say, at the bottom end of that you've got your compressed music, but with all of this gear, even things like Spotify will sound much better than if you just plug normal earphones in the side. The next step after that is to go to an uncompressed file format, ideally ripped from a CD. Now I rip all my files using FLAC, which is a lossless audio compression system, but unfortunately one that isn't supported by iTunes. But the nice thing about Audivana Plus, and one of the reasons why I came across it in the first place, was that it actually supports FLAC on the Macintosh. Now what happens if you're not using a Mac? If you're using Windows, I'd actually recommend using Winamp. because that does support FLAC, and it will also do that clever thing where it will actually squirt the sound directly out of the computer and into your device, so you can actually bypass some of the nasty stuff. That's called kernel streaming on Windows, if you're interested in that sort of thing. So those are my 4 steps to achieving decent hi-fi quality on the move: a decent set of earphones, a USB digital to analog converter, decent software that can actually bypass all of the mucking around on your computer, and then finally a decent quality music file to start with. And as you can see, I've achieved that with just physically carrying these 2 devices. So this is an extremely portable solution, and I'm really happy with it. It's really transformed my music enjoyment on the road, and it's something that I really didn't think was possible until now. Just before I wrap up this video, I'll mention a couple of other things to do with audio. Here in front of me, as always, is the Zoom H2N. This is the external microphone and sound recorder that I'm using to record the audio for these videos. And now that I'm onto this video, hopefully you've heard some of the other ones, I think you'll agree that it sounds pretty good. And this little muffler on the top is doing quite a good job of getting rid of the wind noise, because there is quite a lot of it around at the moment. I've been receiving some questions, please keep those comments coming, about how I'm synchronizing the audio with this, with the video recorded by the iPad. And I use a very old-fashioned technique, which you'll have seen on the movies many times before. They use clapperboards, which is a kind of wooden thing where you move the bit at the top and it makes a loud cracking sound. And the idea is that cracking sound is recorded by all the devices, and then you synchronize it, you line it up using that. Now I haven't got a clapperboard, so I just clap my hands. So what I'll do before recording a video, clap my hands 2 or 3 times, and that sound's recorded by this device and also by the iPad. And then when I open that up in Premiere or whatever I'm using to edit it, I look at the waveforms and you'll see these peaks where the claps are. And you just basically shift them left and right until those peaks match up, turn off the sound from the iPad and listen to the sound from this, and they're perfectly in sync. And that actually works surprisingly well. So that's how you synchronize audio between these devices on the move. And in fact, using this microphone has really made me rethink a lot of my camera reviews, because previously I would always get a little bit annoyed when a higher end camera didn't come with a microphone input. I'd be like, well, I want to connect a microphone for better sound quality. But now I'm beginning to realize that for the ultimate sound quality, you do of course need the microphone as close as possible to the source. So why not keep it separate? And that's where this device is working really well, and it allows me to record high quality audio and synchronize it with a camera, even if that camera doesn't have a microphone input. Wow, that was a big video about audio. I hope you enjoyed that. If you didn't, I apologize. My next video will be back to do with photography. I'm going to be talking more about the equipment that I've been using on this trip, how it's been working out, and again, the various techniques that I've been using to take some of my photos while I've been away. As always, the reviews keep coming at cameralabs.com. If you're interested in anything like the Olympus E-M5, the Nikon D800, D3200, the Canon EOS 5D Mark III, all the latest cameras. We've got reviews of all of them at cameralabs.com, so please head over there and check them out. And once again, I'd love to hear your comments on this series of videos, whether you're finding them useful, whether you like more or less of various technologies. I hope you've enjoyed this one on audio. Like I say, it's certainly transformed the way I listen to my music on the move. See you next time.